Aveline Rowan cannot remember a world that isn't crowded. Not with people, those were always scarce, but with the dead. They press against mirrors when she brushes her teeth, lurk at the edges of alleys when she walks home, peer through the crack of her bedroom door at 3 in the morning. If you know where to look, they're everywhere. No one else ever knew where to look. As a child, she pointed them out. Who's that man in the hallway? Why is that lady crying in the ceiling? The social workers traded uneasy glances, wrote words like imaginative and unstable in red pen, and told her not to scare the other kids. Families who came to the orphanage wanted quiet, grateful children, not the girl who talked to the empty corners of the room. Eventually, the visits stopped coming for her. The ghosts never did. They sat at the foot of her bed and told her how they died. They followed her into adulthood, into cheap apartments and cheaper jobs. It's hard to serve coffee when a burned soldier is screaming behind the customer's shoulder. Hard to walk dogs through the park when a drowned boy keeps asking where his mother went. So Aveline learned not to talk about what she saw. She learned to keep moving, never staying in one town long enough for rumors to root. She told herself she didn't mind being alone, that someone like her was safer that way. The problem is, she's always been better at feeling sorry for the dead than for herself. They're lonely, like she is. Lost, like she is. She has spent her whole life trying not to resent the living for never choosing her. What she never expected was to resent a dead woman instead. Because somewhere at the edge of the northern Wraithwood, there is a man who still wears his grief like a wedding ring. A man whose heart belongs to a ghost that will not let go. And Aveline, idiot that she is about to fall in love with him. Early winter, year 19 of the Thorn Rain. Not a single driver at the Greybridge station wanted to take Aveline into the forest. To be fair, there weren't many drivers left, 2 official cabs shivering under the flickering street lamps and 1 rusted sedan whose owner looked like he'd pawn his own teeth for gas money. Still, every one of them went stiff the moment she mentioned the name. Loop and hold, the first driver repeated, knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. No chance. That place is cursed. Surrounded by haunted woods, the second added, as if she hadn't heard that phrase her whole life. The ones who go up there don't all come back. And the ones who do, aren't right. The man in the sedan just crossed himself and refused to meet her eyes. None of it sounded particularly encouraging. But Aveline had not spent years hoarding tips and paychecks, skipping meals to stretch rent money, just to turn around at the last train stop before the forest. Loop and hold was more than a rumor to her. It was the only place left on any map that still had her family name written in the margins. Elder Rowan. Groundskeeper. Her last living relative. No amount of haunted woods was going to keep her from at least trying to meet him. And no shortage of taxis was going to stop her from walking if she had to. 3 hours, the station clerk had warned. Maybe 4, if the fog rolled in early. The path would be narrow, the trees too close, the wind colder than it had any right to be. Aveline adjusted the strap of her worn pack, pulled her cloak tight around her, and stepped off the cracked pavement onto the dirt track that led into Wraithwood. Behind her, the town lights shrank to a handful of tired stars. Ahead, the forest swallowed the world in blue-gray mist. The dead followed, of course. They always did. But somewhere beyond the twisting trunks and drifting leaves, beyond the fear in every driver's eyes, a different fate waited for her, a cursed alpha, a house full of wolves, and a ghost who refused to share. Aveline just didn't know yet that by the time she reached Loop and Hold, the man who lived there would reject her in daylight, and dream of her every night. And that is where her real story begins, on the night she walked into the Wraithwood alone, chasing the faintest chance at family, and instead found the obsession that would burn her world down. Subscribe now so you're here for every turn this story takes. The fog thickened as Aveline stepped deeper into Wraithwood, swallowing the last sounds of the train station behind her. The world grew quiet in that particular way forests do when they're watching. Branches arched overhead like the ribs of some ancient beast, and the wind threaded through them with a thin, mournful whistle. The dead trailed her at first, half-transparent wanderers drifting at the edges of her vision, but their shapes flickered and thinned the farther she walked beneath the snarled canopy. She wondered if even ghosts feared this place. It wasn't long before the sky vanished entirely, replaced by twisting branches that didn't seem to obey the normal shapes of trees. They curled inward and then away, almost serpentine, as if recoiling from something deeper in the woods. Aveline tightened her grip on her pack. She had no plan other than walk forward. Forward was where Elder Rowan lived. Forward was where answers waited. Forward was where family, real, blood family, might exist for her. But Wraithwood had its own intentions. She heard the crunch of leaves before she felt the presence. Soft, rhythmic, too light to be human. Aveline froze, her breath caught halfway between lungs and throat. Something moved in the mist to her right. Something small. Low to the ground. Watching. A wolf pup padded out from between two colossal roots, its fur dusted with frost, its eyes, fiercely bright, unnervingly intelligent, locked onto hers. Silver irises, almost glowing in the dim light. Aveline didn't move. Neither did the pup. "Well," she whispered, "you're not what I expected." The wolf took a step closer, then another, little paws sinking into the moss-laden ground. It sniffed her boots, snorted, and, before she could react, grabbed the strap of her pack in its teeth. "Hey," she hissed. The pup tugged sharply, nearly pulling her off balance, and then darted off through the trees with a speed she hadn't thought possible. Aveline cursed under her breath and chased it. Branches slapped against her arms. Leaves scattered under her boots. Fog curled into her mouth like cold smoke as she ran. The pup darted left, then right, weaving through roots and fallen trunks with infuriating ease. Every time she gained ground, it accelerated. Every time she slowed, it stopped to look back, tail flicking impatiently. It was leading her somewhere. Or luring her. Either possibility seemed equally likely in a forest locals called haunted with their voices lowered and their eyes averted. Aveline stumbled out of the trees so abruptly she almost fell. The ground leveled beneath her feet. The fog thinned. And looming ahead, half buried in ice, half swallowed by vines, was a massive iron gate. 2 words were carved into the arch above it. Loop and hold. Her heart kicked hard. She had made it. The pup trotted up to the gate, dropped her pack in front of it, and stared at her expectantly. "Are you my welcoming party?" she asked. The wolf blinked slowly, as if unimpressed by her tone. Aveline reached for her pack, only to freeze when the forest behind her fell completely silent. Not quiet. Silent. As though something had sucked the breath and sound from the air. A shape stepped out of the deeper fog. Not the pup. A wolf, full-grown and enormous, emerged from the trees, its fur storm gray and silver, its eyes the same unnatural blue she had glimpsed in the pup. Muscles rippled beneath its coat as it approached, each step deliberate, measured. Aveline backed against the gate, her pulse hammering, but the wolf did not growl. It only stood there, powerful and impossibly still, watching her. Something about its posture, its restraint, told her it understood far more than any wild creature should. The pup yipped softly. The giant wolf flicked an ear. Then the gate groaned open behind her. Aveline spun. An old man stood there, lantern in hand, white beard tangled like frostbitten brambles. His eyes, sharp, assessing, roamed her face, searching for pieces of someone long gone. "Aveline Rowan?" he asked, voice gravelly and low. Her throat tightened. "Yes." The old man exhaled as if relieved and stricken at once. "I'm Elder Rowan," he said. "Your mother's uncle." Aveline swallowed hard. "I didn't know she had any family left." "She didn't either," he murmured. "Come. Quickly. Before the forest decides it wants you back." The pup darted inside. The giant wolf followed, stepping past Aveline with a presence that felt almost royal. As she crossed the threshold into Lupin Hold, the gate slammed shut behind her. The manor rose ahead, towering stone walls cracked by frost, windows like hollow eyes staring down at her. Vines strangled the pillars, and the entry hall flickered with the dim, uneven glow of old chandeliers. Aveline shivered despite the thick cloak wrapped around her. "It's colder inside than out," she whispered. "It always is." Elder Rowan's words were flat. "She makes it so." Aveline looked at him sharply. "She?" Elder Rowan didn't answer. He only gestured her deeper inside. As they walked the main corridor, Aveline felt it, that prickle down the spine, that hush of unseen breath. A presence hovering just out of sight. Watching. Windows iced over as she passed. Shadows stretched in ways shadows shouldn't. A whisper, too soft to be distinct, brushed her ear. Aveline stiffened. Elder Rowan placed a hand on her shoulder. "Do not wander alone. Not here. Not until he decides if you'll stay." She asked. The answer stepped into the hallway before Elder Rowan could speak. Tall. Severe. Dark hair falling to his shoulders. Eyes the exact storm gray of the massive wolf she'd seen outside. His expression carved from stone, his posture rigid with the kind of authority that didn't need to be spoken to be felt. Cassian Thorne. Alpha of this forsaken estate. And the man married to a ghost. Aveline's breath caught for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Cassian's gaze dragged across her, not with warmth or welcome, but with cold assessment, suspicion, and something else simmering beneath it, something he clearly loathed himself for feeling. "Who is this?" he asked Elder Rowan. "Your new nanny," Elder Rowan said simply. "I did not request one," Cassian replied. "The children did." Cassian's jaw tightened. Lyra appeared behind him, tiny, wild-haired, bright-eyed. She gasped when she saw Aveline, then threw herself forward, arms wrapping around Aveline's waist as if they'd known each other for years. Aaron followed, quieter, his expression solemn but hopeful. Cassian watched the children cling to her. Then he looked at Aveline again. "You," he said, voice like winter, "do not belong here." Aveline swallowed. "I came to find my uncle. To work. To help." "You will leave at dawn." Lyra sobbed. "No. She stays." Aaron grabbed Aveline's hand. "Please." Cassian's eyes flickered, pain, hesitation, then iron snapping shut again. "I said what I said," he murmured, turning away. The lights above them dimmed. Frost crept along the banister. And from the upper floor, Aveline felt it. A smile. Cold. Watching. Possessive. Cashin Thorne was not alone in this house. And the ghost who haunted him had just noticed Aveline existed. As night fell, and the manor swallowed its warmth, Aveline understood one thing with absolute clarity. She was already in danger. And she had not even met the dead woman yet. This was the beginning of the rejection that would define her days. And the obsession that would devour her nights. Night settled over Lupenhold like a shroud, heavy and cold. Aveline stood in the dim corridor long after Cashin Thorne had vanished into the shadows, the children clinging to her hands as if she were the brightest thing left in this crumbling world. The upper floor creaked. Something moved there, slow, languid, watching. Aveline forced herself to breathe evenly. She was already in danger. She knew that. But she also knew one truth with startling clarity. Cashin's children needed her. And she needed a place to belong. Morning came too fast. Aveline had barely slept, every whisper of wind pressed against the windows like fingers, and the soft click of footsteps outside her door reminded her she wasn't alone on this floor. When Elder Rowan knocked at dawn, she half expected to be told to leave immediately. Instead, he found Lyra curled at the foot of her bed and Aaron asleep in a chair by the window. "They were here all night," she whispered. Elder Rowan's eyes softened. "They haven't slept properly since Seraphine died. And the Alpha, well. He refuses to see what they need." He studied Aveline for a long moment. "The children chose you," he said quietly. "The house chose you. Cashin will fight it, but even he cannot deny what is right in front of him." "But he said—" "I heard what he said," Elder Rowan interrupted. "But I also know what I see." He placed a gnarled hand over hers. "The children need her," he murmured to himself, then louder, "the house needs you." The house, Aveline thought, did not feel like a place that needed anything except exorcism. But Lyra stirred sleepily and climbed into her lap. Aaron's brow furrowed even in slumber. She felt the decision settle in her bones. "I'll stay," she whispered. Elder Rowan nodded once. "Then I will inform the Alpha." "Convince him," she almost said. But nothing about Cashin Thorne suggested he could be convinced of anything. The corridor outside the dining hall buzzed with tension. Cashin stood at the head of the long table, gloves on, shoulders rigid, jaw locked tight. His eyes, those storm-gray eyes, cut to Aveline when she entered with the children. She lifted her chin. He said nothing. Elder Rowan spoke instead. "The children require stability. You know this." Cashin didn't look at him. His glare remained fixed on Aveline as if she'd personally insulted the foundation stones of his estate. "Fine," he said finally. "She stays. But she stays out of my way." Aveline swallowed. "Understood. And we keep this arrangement," he continued sharply, "strictly professional." Her pulse fluttered at the implication buried under his tone, an implication he despised. She nodded again. Cashin turned away as if the conversation disgusted him. But the children clapped, thrilled. And just like that, she became the nanny of Lupenhold. She spent the day reading with them in the library, repairing torn clothing, calming Lyra's boundless imagination, and coaxing Aaron to speak more than a few sentences at a time. He was a quiet child, far too quiet for one so young. But he watched everything. By sunset, they were laughing. Aveline's heart ached with how natural it felt, how easily affection took root here. Through it all, she felt Cashin observing from the periphery, never entering, never participating, always watching. Always resisting. And something else watched too, colder than him. From the second-floor landing, the air shifted whenever Aveline passed beneath it. Frost crawled along the railing. A whisper trailed behind her steps. Seraphine was not resting. And she did not like competition. Aveline learned Lupin holds rules quickly. No doors locked at night. No mirrors left uncovered. No entering the West Wing under any circumstance. That wing is unsafe, Elder Rowan told her. It's haunted, Aaron corrected in a quiet voice. Lyra nodded solemnly. Mama doesn't like visitors. Aveline froze. Your mother? But the children only exchanged a look too old for their years and ran off to the garden. Later, Elder Rowan confirmed it. The ghost is Seraphine Thorne. Cashin's sister-in-law. The children's mother. Aveline's skin prickled. She's still here? Too much grief keeps the dead from walking on. His voice cracked. Too much love, too. She didn't ask him which belonged to whom. Nights were the worst. Cashin walked the halls in long, relentless strides, never sleeping, never settling, always moving as if hunted. His boots echoed through the manor until dawn. Sometimes Aveline heard a door slam. Sometimes a furious growl. Once, she heard something heavy shatter against a wall. But worse than Cashin's unrest was Seraphine's presence. The air thickened whenever Aveline approached the West Wing. Mirrors trembled when she passed them. Voices brushed her ears like moth wings. He is mine. You don't belong here. He will destroy you. Aveline ignored them. Mostly. One afternoon, Aveline was helping Lyra gather fallen branches in the courtyard when the girl suddenly shifted. No warning. No hesitation. One heartbeat she was a child, the next, where a little girl stood, a wolf pup shook out its fur and chased a leaf across the stones. Aveline nearly fainted. Lyra shifted back, giggling. Aaron can do it too. Papa can't shift right now. He's broken. Aveline blinked, stunned. Broken, how? Lyra tilted her head. Mama broke him. Aveline's blood chilled. Aaron, meanwhile, avoided shifting. He lingered near the courtyard wall, hand pressed over the inside of his forearm. When Aveline knelt beside him, he flinched. Aaron? Are you hurt? He shook his head quickly, but she saw the scar beneath his sleeve. A burn. Old. Jagged. The shape of a hand, impossibly small for an adult. A child's hand. Aaron, she whispered, who did this to you? His eyes darted to the West Wing. He said nothing. That night, Cashin's agitation was palpable. Every time Aveline entered a room, he tensed. Every time she stood too close, he forced himself to step back as if proximity caused him physical pain. Once, their hands brushed while passing a book at dinner. Cashin jerked away as though her touch burned. His voice wavered when he spoke to her. His breathing stuttered. His control cracked. He wanted her. And hated himself for it. Aveline felt the pull too. But something in the manner sharpened whenever sparks jumped between them. Seraphine watched. Seraphine waited. Seraphine grew furious. It happened on a night colder than the rest. Aveline had been searching for the children's missing sketchbook and wandered too close to Cashin's wing. The air grew bitingly cold. Candle flames thinned until they were nothing but trembling blue threads. Aveline turned back. Too late. Hands, icy, skeletal, invisible, wrapped around her throat. She choked, digging at nothing. Her vision blurred white, then red. A woman's voice hissed through her skull. Leave him. Leave us. Leave. Aveline staggered into the wall, nails scraping against the stone. Images slammed into her mind, flames, screams, a collapsing tower, Cashin kneeling in ash, Seraphine's face twisted with longing and madness. Then Cashin appeared, gripping her shoulders. Aveline. His eyes widened at her state, ashen, gasping, trembling. What happened? He demanded. She couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Cashin pulled her against him, hands steadying, but that only enraged the unseen thing still lingering. The candles blew out. Seraphine's whisper curled between them. You take what is mine. Cashin flinched as if struck by something he couldn't see. Then his expression hardened. He pushed Aveline away. Violently. She stumbled, pain flashing through her elbow as she hit the floor. His voice was rough, breaking. I cannot feel anything for you. Aveline froze. You will stay away from my family, he continued, as if forcing each word out through clenched teeth, and away from me. Her vision blurred. Cashin. Do not say my name. The door slammed between them. Aveline remained on the floor long after his footsteps faded. But when she finally stood, she made a silent promise. She would uncover the truth of this house, of him, of Seraphine, no matter what it cost. Answers came from the least likely place. A wandering peddler's map led her to an impossible alley between two streets, a crack in reality she never noticed before. Inside it lay a bookstore that shouldn't exist, dustless, endless, unreal. A man stood behind the counter, young and old at once. His name was Adrian. I've been expecting you, he said without looking up. Wraithwood moves quickly when an outsider touches the alpha's heart. Aveline stiffened. His ghost attacked me. Not his ghost. Hers. Adrian closed the book he was holding and met her gaze. Seraphine Thorne is bound to Cashin by grief, delusion, and a promise that should never have been made. She believes he is her mate. She will kill anyone who threatens that belief. Aveline's stomach twisted. How do I free him? A wish. A wish? He nodded. But payment is required. Something priceless. Something that defines you. Aveline hesitated. Then she whispered, Take my sight. Adrian tilted his head. Your eyes? My ability, she corrected softly. My ability to see the dead. Adrian's expression shifted, respect, perhaps, or pity. He raised a hand. Then so it shall be. The world blinked. And the spirits, her lifelong companions, blinked out with it. For the first time in her life, the world was empty. Horribly, blessedly empty. But Cashin would be free. Or so she believed. She returned to Lupenhold just as the sky split with lightning. Smoke curled above the manor. Her heart stopped. "No," she whispered. A scream tore through the night, Aaron's voice. Aveline ran, lungs burning, skirts torn by branches. Flames licked the windows. Shadows writhed inside. She saw Aaron on the second floor, striking a match with trembling fingers, his eyes glassy with someone else's will. Seraphine's will. Cashin lay unconscious near the doorway, unmoving. Aveline screamed his name. The fire answered. And Lupinhold began to burn. Obsession, fire, and the wolf that chose her ***. The fire breathed like a living creature, hungry, reaching, climbing clawed fingers up the stone walls of Lupinhold. Smoke swallowed the sky. Embers swarmed the air like vengeful stars. The heat slammed into Aveline as she burst through the front doors, coughing, eyes burning. Somewhere inside, Cashin was dying. Somewhere inside, Aaron was lost in Seraphine's grip. Somewhere above them all, the ghost watched Aveline's return with cold, triumphant fury. Aveline had traded her ability to see spirits. She had not traded her courage. She wrapped her cloak around her mouth and plunged inside. The grand hall was unrecognizable, stone cracking from heat, portraits collapsing into ash. Aveline sprinted through the smoke, shielding her face as the ceiling groaned above her. Every corner glowed with orange light, shadows writhing like they had been waiting centuries to break free. "Cashin," she shouted. Her voice vanished under the roar of the blaze. A beam crashed behind her. Sparks tore at her skin. Aveline forced herself onward, heart pounding. She could feel Seraphine's presence, faint now, wavering, but still there. The ghost's rage pressed like icy fingers down her spine. "You should not have come back," Seraphine whispered, her voice thin, distorted. Aveline spun around, expecting nothing, yet seeing something. Seraphine flickered in her vision, not with the clarity of before, but like a dying flame, translucent, unraveling at the edges. Aveline understood. Her sacrifice, the loss of her ghost sight, had weakened the ghost's grip on this world. "You can't stop me," Aveline said, coughing through the smoke. "Not anymore." Seraphine's form spasmed. "He is mine. He belongs to me." "No," Aveline snarled, pushing through falling debris. "He belongs to himself." Seraphine screamed. The walls shook. Fire surged upward as though answering to her fury. Aveline stumbled into the east corridor and saw Cashin, collapsed, unconscious, half buried under a fallen beam. His hair was matted with soot, his chest barely moving. "Cashin!" She fell to her knees beside him, frantically checking his pulse. There, faint, fragile, slipping. A cold hand seized her shoulder. Seraphine's voice trembled with desperation. "Leave him. Let him burn with me." "He promised." "Your promise was to seal him." Aveline shouted, wrenching free. "Cashin was never yours." The ghost's form flickered violently, as though unraveling thread by thread. The path up the tower staircase blazed with fire, but Aveline saw movement through the haze. A white shape retreating. "Aaron." "Hold on," she whispered to Cashin, brushing soot from his cheek. "I'm coming back for you." She ran toward the tower, where the final confrontation waited. The tower stairs crumbled beneath her boots. Aveline climbed anyway, gripping the railing as fire licked her heels. Aaron stood near the top, eyes glassy, breathing shallow, striking matches with trembling fingers. Every match sputtered in his hands, feeding the inferno, consuming the tower. Aaron, she cried. Stop, look at me. He didn't blink. Seraphine hovered behind him, her ghostly hands guiding his small wrists. She was unraveling rapidly now, strands of her form lifting like threads in a wind only she could feel. Seraphine! Aveline shouted over the roar. Look at him. Look what you're doing. Seraphine's eyes, pale, burning, snapped toward Aveline. I loved him first. I loved him always. No, Aveline said. You loved Selim. The ghost trembled. Aveline stepped closer, heat forcing tears from her eyes. Cashin loved you because he had to pretend. But Selim was your mate. Seraphine's glow dimmed. No. Selim left me. Aveline shook her head. Selim died saving his brother. A blast of heat surged upward, and in its heart, a massive spectral wolf appeared. White fur blazing with otherworldly light, eyes filled with sorrow too deep for words. Selim. Seraphine's entire form wavered. She reached out, voice cracking. Selim? The wolf pressed his forehead to hers. For a moment, the world went still, the fire, the wind, even the collapsing stones seemed to hold its breath. Seraphine's expression softened, grief melting into devastating recognition. Then her form slowly broke apart in Selim's glow, dissolving into shimmering embers carried upward by the flames. Gentle. Peaceful. The fire no longer fought her. Aveline caught Aaron as he collapsed into her arms, freed from the ghost's influence. She held him tightly as Selim's spectral wolf bowed once, grateful, before fading into nothing. Seraphine was gone. At last. But Cashin was still dying downstairs. Aveline gathered Aaron and ran. The smoke thickened as Aveline reached Cashin again. She laid Aaron a safe distance away, then lifted the fallen being with a strength fueled by fear alone. Her body screamed in protest. Cashin, listen to me, she gasped, shaking his shoulder. You can't die here. Not now. Not after everything. No response. She pressed her forehead to his chest, feeling the faintest heartbeat. Please, she whispered. I gave up everything for you. Don't make that sacrifice meaningless. Still nothing. Desperation took over. She cupped his face, forcing breath into his lungs, whispering through tears. I'm not afraid of you, she choked. I'm only afraid of losing you. Heat gathered beneath her hands. Cashin inhaled sharply. His eyes flew open, storm gray, glowing unnaturally bright. His body twisted, ribs cracking, limbs reshaping, bones stretching. Aveline stumbled back as his clothes tore. Fur rippled across his skin. His spine arched. He shifted. Not like the children. Not like a simple wolf. He became the massive, silver-eyed beast she'd first seen in the woods, majestic, powerful, terrifying. He stepped between Aveline and the fire, lowering his head to her level. Smoke illuminated the edges of his fur, making him look like a creature forged from moonlight and blaze. Cashin, Aveline whispered. He nudged her gently, urging her onto his back. She climbed on, fingers sinking into his thick fur just as the ceiling gave way above them. Cashin leaped through the flames, swift, sure, unstoppable. He burst out of the collapsing matter, landing hard on the scorched earth beyond the gates. Behind them, Lupin Holt roared and fell. But they were alive. Aveline slid from Cassion's back as the great wolf collapsed into the snow-dusted ground. He shifted back into human form, naked, trembling, alive. She covered him with her cloak, cradling his head in her lap. "I failed them," he rasped. "I failed everyone. I failed you." "No," Aveline whispered fiercely. "Seraphine failed you. The curse failed you. But you survived it." Elder Rowan rushed to join them, sustaining his beard. Lyra sobbed into his arms. Aaron clung to Aveline's side, burying his face in her shoulder. Elder Rowan looked at Aveline with heavy eyes. "The second wish has been answered," he murmured. Aveline blinked. "Second, what?" "I bargained with the magician as well," he said. "I asked that you be made safe among wolves. That you never suffer for choosing Cassion." Her heart lurched. "What did you give?" He smiled sadly. "Something old men should have surrendered long ago." Aveline didn't understand, until she felt the heat in her bones. The humming beneath her skin. The pull of the moon. Something inside her turning, awakening. She was a shifter now. Not human. Not ghost-touched. Something new. Something wild. She swallowed hard, staring at her trembling hands. She could live here. In their world. With him. The realization shook her to her core. Cassion sat up slowly, eyes widening as he sensed the change in her. "Aveline," he whispered, reverent, afraid, grateful all at once. She reached for him. Cassion inhaled sharply, and then, without warning, shifted again. His wolf emerged with a low, rumbling growl, not a threat, but a sound thick with emotion. He stepped toward her, massive and majestic. Then he knelt. The alpha wolf of Lupenhold bowed before her, head lowered, ears flattened, surrendering instinctively. Aveline's breath broke. She touched his fur, soft, warm, real, and everything inside her settled. She finally understood. She had never been unwanted. She had been unmatched. Until him. Cassion raised his head, pressing it to her chest. Aveline closed her eyes and held him, her heart no longer afraid of its own longing. Dawn crept over Wraithwood hours later, pale and quiet. They stood together among the ashes, Aveline, Cassion, the children, and Elder Rowan, by the small gravestone that marked Selim's resting place. Lyra placed a flower atop it. Aaron whispered goodbye. Cassion touched the stone with trembling fingers. Then he turned to Aveline. "By day," he said softly, voice thick with emotion, "I pushed you away. I thought distance would protect you from me, from this." He brushed a soot-streaked strand of hair from her cheek. "But by night," he whispered, "you lived in every thought I had." Aveline felt her breath catch. "Stay," Cassion said. "Not as a nanny. As I should have asked you to be from the beginning." He lifted her hand to his heart. "As mine." Aveline stepped into him, into the warmth of his arms, into the future she had never dared to imagine for herself. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. And with the sun rising over the ruins of Lupenhold, Aveline Rowan finally found the home she had spent her entire life searching for. In the man who once rejected her. And the wolf who never did. If this story caught your attention, subscribe and join us for the next story.